Good afternoon, friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I have two guests on. I have a conversation that we want to have, and I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves. And if y'all want to go, and I have Sister Inayah. You want to?
Sure. My name is Inayah Musadik. I'm a Texan native, African American, born here in Texas. I'm a revert Muslima for 20 years plus, and this is my way of life.
Okay, and I have another guest on. You want to introduce yourself, brother?
I begin with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We praise God, we thank him. He is the Lord, keeper, sustainer, evolver of all the worlds.
Okay.
My name is Omar Shakir, and I am resident imam of Masjid Bilal Ibn Rabah here in San Antonio, Texas, on the east side. And I am also a revert. I don't even know how long it's been, let's say since 1975. And my main work has been prison ministry. I gave the Texas Department of Criminal Justice over 25 plus years serving the Muslim inmate population. And Brother Lewis, thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be with you today.
All right. Inshallah. Okay, now, so we have a conversation that we want to have. And my sister Inayah, she decided that she wanted to talk about Islamic women. And the title of the show is, I kind of streamed it down some, because, of course, if we talk about women in Islam, we could go way back. And we could talk about a lot of women in Islam. And this is not going to be just a history lesson or anything like that. It's black women in America, black Islamic women in America. How about that? So, first of all, when I first met you, you was not Muslim. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Okay. When did you convert to Islam?
So I converted to Islam in my early 20s. And I was introduced in the work atmosphere. So, well, let me back up. Actually, my father was connected to NOI. And,
okay. And the NOI is the Nation of Islam?
The Nation of Islam. My father was connected to the Nation of Islam, and I remember as a young, maybe 9-year-old, going to the mosque. Certain people stayed with me in memories of Sister Betty Muhammad and etc. So I had a taste of Islam, maybe not really ready, maybe it didn't register as a young girl, but Allah brought it back to me.
Okay.
So when he calls you to Islam, you will get it.
And about what time frame was that? How old were you?
As a youth? When I accepted it?
Yes.
My early 20s, I would say maybe about 25 or 24, okay. 25.
And were you in San Antonio then?
No.
Okay, because I remember, like I said, I knew you. You're my and what it is. She's my kid's cousin. You're
yes.
my kid's
first cousin. Actually.
First cousin, yeah. And so you back then you had a different name. You was American name, and I knew you as Renee. Then next time I saw you. Unfortunately, it was at a family event, a funeral probably, and you told me,
yes.
I said, and I agree, I said, Renee, and you said no. You told me Inayah. And I'm like, alhamdulillah, that was great. So, so women in Islam, black women in Islam, in America, that's, for a lot of people, a culture shock. Because growing up in the American culture, a lot of Americans see Islam in a certain way that they were fed to believe. And they think that Islam is a very oppressive thing for women. Mm-hmm. This is some of the narrative that I hear when I hear people talking. And they see it as a rarity for someone that's not born into the religion to convert into the religion as a woman. So tell me now. You had a background. You say that you had a background with the Nation of Islam. Yeah. So you were introduced to Islam at a younger age. You just hadn't been.
Yeah, it didn't register.
It didn't register. Mm-hmm. So what made it register?
Yeah, go ahead. Excuse me for interrupting, Brother Kevin. Before we get into that, though, not taking anything for granted with your audience, if we're going to talk about black women in Islam or Islam at all, we want to make sure that the people understand what that is.
Yes.
And I have to say, as an imam, and for those that don't know, in Islam, an imam is a title literally meaning the leader, one who is out front, or the religious authority, that type of thing. I have to bring to your audience and let them know that when you talk about Islam, in its universal sense, regardless of black, brown, Asian, African, European, when you talk about Islam, what is that all about? And I just want to briefly, and your audience can Google this, they can research it themselves, they can contact us and learn more. But when you talk about Islam, you have to understand, what do Muslims believe and what are our practices? Because regardless of our color, we all have the same beliefs and we have the same practices.
Right.
And simply that is, number one, we believe in the one God. Number two, we believe in all of God's angels. 3, we believe in all of the messengers of God. 4, we believe in all of the books of God. 5th, we believe that there's going to be a final day of judgment and a life hereafter. And lastly, of the 6 beliefs or articles of faith of the Muslims, we believe in a final day, or pardon me, I'll say the destiny of Allah, that Allah predetermines things with exact knowledge. Now that gets complicated. I won't get into that. It doesn't mean that we don't have limited free will. It just means that everything is embodied in God's knowledge.
Okay.
And our practices are more familiar with the non-Muslim public. Sisters talked about being a revert. I'm a revert. I don't know what your situation is,
when you're saying
Brother
you're a
Kevin.
revert, when you're saying, what do you mean by revert?
Well, you could say convert.
Okay.
But we have learned over the years, and it's become part of our culture, that though none of the terms are the best, convert has one connotation and revert has another. So why do we prefer revert? Because convert means that you leave one thing to become something else.
Right.
Revert means that you return to what you were in your essence in the very beginning. And we believe that Islam, commonly called Islam, is our birthright, it's our inheritance. So we weren't raised in Islam, so we had to return to our nature. Okay. That's why we use that language.
As opposed to in Christianity where they say we're born in sin and things like that. In Islam, you're saying that we are born. Okay, let me backtrack and do this.
It's okay.
Because I was going to go into that. I was going to ask her about, and I said accepting Islam, right? Because we're not born into an Islamic state here in America, and many of us have no knowledge of it growing up, and we have to accept it. And accept the guidelines and the rules and the laws of Islam. Now, some of us are born with our parents that are Muslim.
Yes, sir.
And so we are born into Islam in that facet as growing up in a family. And some of us are not. And if we're not familiar, even though you may be familiar, like you say, with the Nation of Islam, many people see that as a different thing. So you have to familiarize yourself with what it is that you are reverting to or whatnot, whatever you want to the terminology you want to use, because it's not familiar to us. If we're not in a family that is Islamic family.
Good point.
So something has to first, we have to learn what it is that we're trying to do or we want to do. And that's what the question was. What was pushing you to that point of saying, okay, this is something that I want to learn more about? Because you have to learn, as far as I'm concerned, you have to learn about it before you say, this is what I want to do or this is what I want to be. It's, well, go ahead.
Not to interrupt you, but that it's interesting that you said that, because in the beginning I knew absolutely nothing. So Allah says He calls you to be a Muslim. You don't choose Islam. Allah choose you for this way of life, Islam. And so the question that you're asking is what really guided and directed me to Islam. And it was not that I studied. It was not that I knew anything. I was like any other sister, right? Going through life, educating, striving, you know, the way that we go, marriage, whatever you decide to go through life. But life has its way of treating you however it's going to treat you. The hardship, whatever comes your way, the struggle, the difficulties, you're going to go through the bumps, the highs, the lows. This is how life serves you. If you expect, well, it serves you that way whether you know God or not. But when you get in those, so I'll say what really brought me into Islam in a conscious way is that life, the ups and downs and going. And I knew that Jehovah's Witness was not working for me because I had that in my background from my mother. Very devout Jehovah's Witness. Christianity was not for me, right? And so when Islam came my way, it was very natural, okay? And I prayed one night. I'll share this. I had made a prayer one night because I was ready. I was ready for something different. I was ready for something more clear. And I was ready for a better direction in my life. I didn't have peace. And I didn't even know how you get peace. Or how do I go about even having a peace? Because everything I tried religiously, it kept going temporarily. Like if I went to the church or I went into any type of service, I was happy there. But when I came out, I was just confused. There was nothing. I wasn't fed. So I made a prayer one night, Brother Kevin, and I asked at the time God. I asked Him, wherever I'm supposed to be to serve you in the best way so that I can be the best person on this earth while I'm here. Please guide me because I am tired of the way I'm living. And I was living, you know, like any other unconscious person live, right? And so it was not even a week. It was not even 3 or 4 days. I was connected to a Muslim.
Okay.
Right.
And Muslim means one who submits to do the will of God.
Yes.
So that is also connected to revert. Because everything, when it's born or alive, submits to do the will. Conscious or unconscious, willing or unwilling. And that's one reason why we use that terminology, revert.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you go right back to that which you are naturally anyway, in submission.
Beautiful.
When you come from your mother's womb, you are not able to do anything. You are in the submission of Allah. Allah brought you here. He decreed for your birth, and you are at His will, and you are in your submission to Him, because you can't do anything yourself.
Okay, so my next question, I'm gonna give it from what you said, building off of what you said. I'm gonna give it to the Imam. At what point do you think we have free will? And sometime with that free will, which we have seen, because the world is not, even though Islam is the fastest growing religion, and I say quote unquote religion because I believe Islam is not just, it's used in that term, and I don't believe that. At what point do you think our free will takes over? Because you brought up a kid coming out the womb. Islam is the laws of Allah, right? Everything, and as far as when I think of Islam, I think everything that we see as far as nature is concerned is the laws of Allah. Gravity, everything, physics, everything. That's the one that put the laws in order. And the lions don't go out and eat grass. They don't get to choose that. They are following the laws of the Creator. They are created that way. They don't have a free will to say, you know what, I'm gonna be a vegetarian, or go against what a lion does, or any predator that does.
Yes,
So
sir.
at what point do you think that we have our free will takes over? Because if I'm born of a mother that is a Christian mother, and the first thing we do, or a Catholic mother, and she has me go, they take me to get baptized or whatever the Catholics do or whatever, then I'm growing up in that household and I'm accepting what my family is doing. At what point do you think that starts?
Okay. Brother Lewis, I'm going to ask you to be patient with me, okay? I know we don't have a lot of time.
Oh, we got plenty of time.
However, I need to finish laying this foundation.
Okay.
I'm going to answer your question, and it's really a simple answer. But what I was talking about is helping the public be clear on what this way of life is all about. So I dealt with the 6 articles of faith, but I must bring out what is more probably visible and apparent to them that they might be familiar with. Every Muslim practices 5 pillars of faith. And we call the articles of faith the faith or the belief, and the pillars of faith are the belief and faith in application or in action. Number 1, when she and I, and even yourself perhaps, I don't know your background, when we accepted Al-Islam, embraced Al-Islam, we took what we call a declaration of faith.
Shahada.
And that is simply Shahada, thank you. I'm not using that language because I don't know how
But I
familiar
wanted to, because I was going to ask you again, because I know what the Shahada is, and I was going to ask you to clarify. Anything I'm coming up, I'm asking you as if I'm talking to them to clarify. So, yeah, I know what it is. So you're talking about the Shahada.
So that means that she and I and you, we bore witness, or we bear witness that there's no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger. Second, Muslims have 5 obligatory daily prayers: dawn, noon, afternoon, sunset, and late night prayer. Thirdly, Muslims practice 2.5%, or we practice charity, where our Christian brothers and sisters might give 10% for tithes. We give, and it's different because the Christians give it first, or from the gross, or off the top. Islam says give 2.5% of your accumulated wealth. Pay your bills, take care of what you need to, buy your food, get Johnny some shoes, and then what you have left over, give 2.5% of that. Fourthly, and I'm sure the whole world knows this, we practice fasting as an institution. In the blessed sacred month we call Ramadan, we fast for 29 or 30 days, denying ourselves food, drink, and intimacy with our spouses from dawn until sunset. And lastly, of the 5, we offer, or we make, the pilgrimage to the house, which happens to be in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. It's called the Kaaba. It's in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, once in our lifetime if we can afford it. And this pilgrimage is symbolic of the universality of man and the equality of man. Again, there's much to be said, but I'm going to leave it right there.
Okay.
Now back to your question. At what point does free will take over? Now, I think I understand what you mean in that question, but if we were to answer it literally, we have free will from day one. We have free will as far as our ability to choose and do things. The problem comes in is that we don't have the knowledge. So I'm going to answer your question this one. I see you processing that, brother. But what I'm saying to you, even now a baby, they can't do nothing. Right. They lay on their back and we take care of them, we clean them, we feed them, all of that. But let them get to a point where they can start crawling around, get to a point or when they can start walking around. Even at 1.5, 2 years old, they're making choices. They're pulling something off the table. The parent tell them to come here, they run the other way. So that free will is always there in that sense. But the responsible free will, or the free will that really makes a difference, I would say manifests or comes into being at our level of consciousness and understanding. Because now we understand there's consequences, or now we understand maybe cause and effect, or now that we're more intentional and deliberate in our choices. So that's when I think it means the most for us as a human family.
Okay. And I'm going to interject something that I had came across. And it's a saying that a child loses its innocence when it realizes that it will one day die.
Okay.
And once you understand that this, like, you are mortal and people around you will die and experience that, then you start wondering about the afterlife.
Okay.
And you start and at that point, sometimes you start wondering, like a kid could be taken to church from the time they're infant.
Yes.
And they believe they were told. I have friends that's from like different countries or whatnot, and they may be Buddhist or whatever. And my mindset was, and this probably steered me away from Christianity, having a high Christian background in my family. The questions that I started to ask myself once I started to broaden my horizons.
Yes.
I had a good friend, and he was a Buddhist, and he had something on his wrist, and I was inquiring about it. And my thing was, in Christianity, they tell me, well, you're going to hell if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, and you don't, become reborn and whatever.
Yes, sir.
So I'm thinking, this person was born in another country, and his family, everyone that he loved, was telling him this was the way to go and this was God.
Right.
So, and it wasn't sitting well with me, because if you're telling me this, and who am I to sit there and tell this person that, and that everything that he has grown up in, the people that nurtured him,
right,
his mother, his grandmother, everyone that loved him was telling him, this is where you find God, this is how you pray to God and whatnot. So that didn't sit well with me. So then I started a journey of seeking what I call my truth, the truth. So that's why I was asking, because what you said as a being born. And then it's like, okay, well, a child doesn't have that choice of even learning or knowing what's all out there.
Okay.
So that's why I was inquiring. I know that's a deep question, but I appreciate the...
Can I say it this way, Brother Kevin, because we're dancing all around it.
Right.
Muhammad the Prophet, the prayer and the peace be on him, taught us that every child is born a Muslim. This is the common translation, but a better understanding of that, not every child, because that might bother some people. I'm not a Muslim. What are you talking about? What the Prophet is really saying, that every child is born on the same pattern, that original disposition, that original constitution, that original pattern, that we all come with the same pattern, and it's the world that teaches us. And this is what you're saying.
Right.
It's the environment that we grow up in. It's the world that teaches us. So that being said, I would say we believe that there's natural Muslim.
Right.
That's what we reverted back to. And then there's conscious Muslim.
Okay.
And you can't be a conscious Muslim without knowledge. That's why, what is the Shahadatain? Shahada comes from Shaheed, which means to witness. You can't be a witness without knowledge.
Right.
So perhaps maybe our dear sister had a beautiful feeling and was attracted to Al-Islam. However, for us, we want you to investigate. We want you to use your own intelligence, your own free will. Check this thing out. And then if your mind and your soul and your spirit says this is for me, then you embrace it. See, in Christianity, they have something called backsliding. We have backsliders in Al-Islam too, because what it means is you get all fired up, you hear a good talk, speech, you join, and then you say, man, I didn't know this is what I signed up for, and then we see you somewhere. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Okay, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So now, with that being said, sister, okay, let's go back to, you starting to convert. You're starting to learn the rules and regulations. How did your family accept that? And this is something that we all, when we everyone I know, and I have, and the reason I'm asking that, because I have people that reach out to me that I don't know. And it may be whatever I'm doing or some task that I'm taking, and a woman may say, she may say something, and she may get the sense of, or maybe she'll say something. I remember sometime a sister said, well, my son didn't converted to Islam, and I know nothing about it. What do I do? And I was trying to explain to her, what that means and and I've had a couple of people that said that, well, and maybe their son may have been incarcerated or whatever, and they converted. And first thing I asked them, I said, well, what are you saying Islam? Because I'm from the state of New York.
Come on.
So
me too.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay.
I grew up in Schenectady, Albany, New York.
Okay, and I'm from Buffalo, New York. So and up there in the East Coast, we have people that use the same terminology. You have the 5%ers, and they use the same Allah, they say Muslim or whatever, but they're not what we consider Muslims. They use the same terminology, like I say, the 5%ers, then we have the nation, we have different people that we may say are sects of Islam, loosely say that. But and I have to ask that person, okay, what are they? You know, when you saying he's a Muslim, is he a 5%er? Right. Is he Nation of Islam? Then I can sort of like steer them in what to be, how to act or how to treat that person.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And that's why I say, because a lot of people don't know, because they hear the propaganda that America puts out about being Muslim.
Yes.
And it's the boogeyman to a lot of America. And it has been for a long time. Back from the time with Malcolm and all of these things, I had a family member, a cousin told me that when they would come out, they had a fish truck or something, they say, don't mess with them. They worship the devil or something like that.
Right.
So it's a lot of, and I think the ignorance that is propagated in America is something that we continually are breaking down the boundaries of. Okay. So how did your family take to you saying that you wanted to be a Muslim or you were?
Okay. So first, the topic is being a black African American woman is in Islamic life, right?
Right.
All right. The first thing we have to understand, and I'm going to answer your question, is that our families that are non-Muslim are born and raised up under a tradition, right? Stemming and originating from slavery.
Right.
And us knowing that as a Muslim, Islam is a very foreign concept to them, which means we should be obligated. I use that word obligated to have more mercy and understanding when it comes to our families who do not understand. My family, no, they didn't understand. Many years they thought I was everything. They thought my life was this way because of Islam. My life took this turn, or what they considered was a bad turn because of Islam. They thought I was crazy. They thought all the things that if you read anything about Prophet Muhammad, so there was something, it's all repetitive when you accept this beautiful religion of Islam. So yes, I had a lot of trials with my family not understanding Islam. I remember the first time my sister thought I was so strange. She really did. I remember her face today. And she said, what is that? Why she have that thing on her head? This is one of my younger sisters, right? And so what we have to understand, and for me, I was so strong and courageous even back then, you know, about my belief in Islam and loving this way of life is what I call it. It's a way of life. You say it's religious.
That's why. Because you're right. But no, and actually I always tell people it's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
Okay, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, that's why I was saying that. I say that loosely because I kind of cringe every time people, and they try to put it in the same context of these. Now they do label it a religion, but I used to go into the meaning of Islam and the meaning of being a Muslim, which the brother eloquently stated what it was. And I would tell people, and to me, even when I'm dealing with Muslims, I tell them, I say, well, the faith didn't start. That was the end with the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was the last messenger. So, and I tell them that everything, if you're talking about the laws of a creator, I don't care who they want to say nature.
Right.
If you're trying to say nature created all the God, when I'm not talking about a God of the earth, I'm talking about the God of a universe. And a universe that we don't even know the boundaries of.
That's right.
So everything within the universe is a creation of the creator. So the moon has a course, and it's going by the laws that it's told to go by. That's the laws. Whenever you're talking about the laws of Allah, you're talking about Islam. And I tell people, like, you have these anti-religious people, anti-Islamic people, and they may call themselves whatever name, and their thing is they want to attack it in different aspects of it. Go ahead.
But I want to go back because Islam is not a new religion.
Oh,
Islam has been around centuries and centuries and centuries, and we have to understand that this was a strategy that was set to be taken from us. Our ancestors and our lineage originated with Islam. That's what our people were, Muslims. So when you take a people from their natural habitat, their natural homes, living, and you take them to a whole nother continent, and not only do you do that, see, we hear this all the time, but this is real reality of what has happened to us. And then you indoctrinate Christianity into them. You beat out their real, what they were born with, Islam, their mothers, fathers, grandmothers. We look into our lineage, we probably have so many Muslims in our lineage, and then you take that from them and you give them Christianity. Not saying that Christianity, anything against Christianity, but when you do, and you take their names, everything, this has been over and over and over given to us. Naturally, when we come along, Imam Omar born, he come along, Sister Inayah come along, centuries later, bringing it right back because you can't kill it.
Oh, yeah. So
you see, now they saying, now your family. I'm talking about now because I love this question that you asked me, because so many Muslims are struggling with their family not accepting and understanding Islam because they have been so indoctrinated with Christianity till they think there's nothing else other than that. And if they just do the history on Christianity alone, there's so much contradictory and things that are not aligned. So it's incumbent upon us to teach them be patient. This is what I would say to Muslims that are listening right now, and their families are either exiling them, don't want them to be a part of the family, or maybe mistreating them, or they're going through in a negative way. It's just, you have to be patient with your family.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to have mercy. You have to still be kind. You have to make the way to keep if you have to stay away for a while, come back. When you come back in peace.
That's right.
That's right. But brother, when I say this, that's not, those things don't happen. They'll go, because we get excited about our Muslim, and we think we're supposed to fight this thing.
Yeah. So another perspective on that, and what I was actually. Now, I asked the question about how did your family take it, because sometimes they take it, they don't know how to take it.
They don't.
So, and you are an example on how they should take it. If you're not, even if I get into a Bible thumper, and I mean those people that sometimes their son may be turned Christian, and what he's doing, and he comes out and he's telling everybody what they're doing wrong, then they looking at him like he's a madman. And I've had people that did that, and I'm saying, like, I don't think that many of us do that, but a lot of times what I'm saying is the culture of America has a negative outlook and shared a negative outlook on Islam. And a lot of things that people don't know, they fear. You fear what you don't understand and what you don't know. And America hasn't done a great job, and I don't expect them to do a great job of shedding the light of true Islam. So a lot of times we are growing up in a culture that has a negative perspective on Islam, and we have to be the example. So when people say, "Oh, you know what? No, that's not what a Muslim is. My sister is Muslim. My cousin is Muslim. My auntie is Muslim. My brother, my uncle is Muslim. He's not a terrorist. He's not going around doing this and all the things that y'all are saying." I remember somebody I work with, social media, and they had somebody come on their post, and they were talking about something in the news about the law, Sharif law, something like that. And he was talking Sharia law. He was talking about these Muslims are crazy. They will divorce their women and want to kill their women if they get raped. And so I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right. So that's not Islam.
And so
right.
it was, basically a back and forth because this person is talking about something that he doesn't even know. I say, how crazy do that sound? And then the guy got mad at me for interjecting. And I had to back out. And I'm like, because it's not my friend, and I'm on somebody else's post, so I backed out. And I explained to the person came that I knew that I actually work with. They said, man, I'm sorry for that person saying that. I'm like, no, well, that's your friends. You don't have to apologize for who your friends are or what they think. But it shows the ignorance that people, because they was accepting that. They was accepting that statement, and they didn't know that, okay, it was nobody there to say, no, that's not true, because I got a Muslim sister, because that's rare in this country for people to say, especially that's not from our community, and not from a certain community. For the mainstream America, they're going to have a different outlook on when you say you're Muslim.
Well, here, respectfully, Brother Kevin, I'm going to introduce something that might be controversial. And what I mean, firstly, I'm acknowledging what you're saying, that we might not want to hear this either, but it serves a certain segment of the world to keep people ignorant about true al-Islam.
Yes.
It keeps them in power, and it keeps the masses as puppets and can be manipulated and all that. Because al-Islam is about liberation on all fronts.
Right.
For women, you're going to hear a little bit more about that in a moment. That's what we're talking about, but women and everything. But here's another thing that I want to interject here. September 11, 2001 really taught me something. And I'm not going to insult people's intelligence and just tell them the ideals and the philosophy of Islam. Let's deal with reality. And the reality of Islam is that some of the poor understanding, the fear, and some of the distortion that people have about Muslims and Islam, Muslims themselves are responsible for that misrepresentation and that distortion.
Right.
It's the way we understand certain things. It's the way we apply certain things. Just quick examples. Afghanistan. Islam is all about educating our women. So here you are calling yourself an Islamic government, and look at how our women are treated under your Islamic government. Although we say Islam is good for women. What about Sudan and other places where the females are being, genitalia is being, you understand? My point is, here we are barking Islam at the loudest voice we can, and we're doing great discretions against humanity and mistreating our own. This guy in Syria gassing his people, etc. So I think you know where I'm going with this, and I'm going to just say this to end it. I'm already on record as saying the United States never should have had to go into Iraq to get rid of Saddam Hussein. We as Muslims should have saw what he was doing, because we say we're one ummah, one Lord, one Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace, one Quran. The Muslim world should have got together and said, Saddam, cease and desist. We are not going to stand by and tolerate what you're doing to your citizens, our Muslim brothers and sisters. And I know we can get into the sovereignty of the nation and all that, but my point is, here is a so-called Christian nation coming in, saving the world. Where is the Muslim presence? Why aren't we taking the stand against the injustices that quote unquote other Muslims are doing?
That's a great point. Man, that is a great point. I mean, that's going to be a deep conversation among a lot of people politically. A lot of us as Americans, and I'm saying Americans, they don't think of it in that aspect, but it takes a Muslim person to think of it and put the pressure on these other countries that call themselves Islamic countries. Now,
it's our responsibility as Muslims to do it.
And then I'm going to bring up this point. It's our responsibilities to bring up injustices, period, in America.
Absolutely.
And I have a brother that's big on that. I know you know the brother also. He talks about leaders not stepping up around the world in Africa and whatnot. And it is a responsibility to speak on any wickedness, injustice that we see. And a lot of times we don't see a lot of these mosques whatever mosque there is, we don't see them when it comes to time to speak up about the injustices that's happening in the black community.
Yes, sir.
And that's pressure that needs to be put on them, because a lot of people will say, when things are happening, I don't see them out there trying to speak up. Mm-hmm. I don't see them in the community doing this and that when it's, trying to, or speaking out. And my thing is, a lot of those people that may be the head of those organizations, they may be guests in this country. So they act as a guest.
Yes, sir.
When you're in Rome, you do as Romans do, or you don't say anything because you don't want.
Right.
And that's, I think that's a problem, the dynamics of some of the things that's happening. But as a person that sits there and they see what's happening in Afghanistan, when they see a woman, a Muslim woman being assassinated for whatever, made to kneel and the person come behind her with an AK, then that's what, and America is going to push that, magnify that even more to say, see, this is Islam.
Yeah.
See, this is Islam.
Yes.
And it's our responsibility to say, no, this is Islam.
Right, that's right.
To the people that's ignorant.
Yes, right, sir. Because every religion has its extremities.
Right.
You have an extreme Christian. You have extreme.
But they're not going to promote that. They're not going to show that. They're not even. Only time that America will say anything about the person's religion that does some type of terrorist act is when they're Muslim.
That's true. Yes.
They don't ask if the bomber, the I forgot the bomber name, whatever
McVeigh.
Yeah, when these bombers are doing stuff, they don't go into his background, his Christian or whatever.
Exactly.
They don't talk about that, even though they may know it. They're not even going to bring it to the forefront, but they will do that with some idiot that shoots up a club and says that he's Muslim and he's not even a real Muslim.
That's right.
He's not. He's never been a Muslim, but he just doing it, and they want to plaster that everywhere before they even make it a valid or a conscious effort to find out if it's valid. Yes, so that's what we deal with. The negative connotation of saying Islam or Muslim or anything.
Islam frees you.
Right.
Islam educates you. Mm-hmm. Islam gives you a clear, balanced understanding of your existence. Islam has so much benefit to anything that you're struggling with, just with self. We're in 2023. And there's so much mental illness and things, etc. People suffering anxiety and all these things. When Allah revealed the Quran, He already knew what would come about in the centuries to come.
That's
He
right.
knew all these things. And the Quran, if you pick it up and you just read it, the book itself is a healing. The book, because it's going to, whatever you're not understanding, it gives you clarity. There's nothing spooky about the Quran at all. It's giving it a chance, picking it up and reading it as if you would read any other book.
Yes, ma'am.
But we like you say, we have made Islam a spookism.
Right.
And how can you have a spookism with a religion that makes it a way of life? A way of life means as if you get up and you wake up in the morning, you go make breakfast and you get yourself together, you shower and etc. That's your way of life, a natural way, a natural way. That's what Islam is. It's giving you a natural way of living in a society that has so much that could make you I say discombobulated or just throw it off crazy, corrupt, perverted, destructive. Islam will come and lay itself there in your face and be able to turn you back around and balance your thinking to help you be that you were created to do. And that was to worship your creator, your God. That's what you were created to do, was to worship. In that worship, you have opportunities. You worship being a nurse. You worship being a doctor. You worship being a teacher. That's worshiping Allah. That's worshiping God, because you're giving back. In anything that you do, you're serving. You're giving a service. And this is, we have to understand why we exist.
And some people, I'm going to say that to some people, because you have teachers, nurses that are racist, and they're in it. And if they're not racist, they're in it for the money. and or they look at certain people that with religion taken out, they look at a certain people and they give them lesser, or they don't try as hard.
And that goes back to what Imam Omar Shakir said. You are perfect as a child until you are raised and your family or your parents or guardian teach you what? That other way to go.
Right.
And that way may be corrupt. It may be whatever it is.
But sister, also I think your point, back to the comprehensive nature of Islam,
right,
is that if you have the right intention and you do it with, we would call it taqwa, regardfulness, to please your creator, and you do it with God's name. Comprehensive says that let's not divorce what the honorable teacher does, the honorable business person, the honorable politician. Let's not divorce what they do from our way of life, because everything, this is the beauty of our way of life. We have guidance for every quarter of our life. Muhammad, the prophet upon him be peace, lived 23 plus years, well, about 23 years as a prophet and a messenger. So his life is documented such that we have details of how he conducted his family life, how he conducted war, how he conducted education, etc. So all I'm saying is we as believers in God should apply those remedies, those solutions, regardless to whether we're a business person, a teacher, etc. That is the comprehensive nature of this way of life. And that's what I understood Sister Inayah to be saying, that when we do that, that might not be formal worship, but it is a form of worship. That's what I heard our sister say.
All right, I appreciate that. Now, I don't see the comments. I want y'all to know I'm not seeing the comments because whatever Facebook is doing. I had to check my phone earlier to make sure that we were on live.
Okay.
Because what it is, my screen is caught up. Even though I'm seeing everything, it's saying your live video is starting. So normally I get to see comments. So if I'm not reading any comments, is because I don't see any comments. I don't even see how many viewers we have, and this is something.
So we're not live?
No, we're live. We're live. That's what I say. I had to check my phone earlier. But that's so. If anybody comes on, they say, "Hey, and y'all had questions or whatnot," I'm not able to see comments. That's what I'm saying. We're live. I checked my phone earlier when we first were starting, because it kept saying your live video is starting. And I'm like, what? Like, it should already done started, and I should be able to see comments. So I just want my viewers to know I'm not able to see any comments. So that's why I'm not reading any of your comments.
Wow.
So, but what I do, I will go to my phone. We have people, Bridget, I appreciate you showing up. And she said a lot of people confuse culture with Islam.
Yes.
Some Muslims in this world do certain things because their culture, not because it is what Islam teaches. So, and that's true. That's absolutely true. I appreciate that, sister.
Excellent point.
out
And
of New York.
Coretta said KKKs are Christians. I appreciate that, sister. But yeah, I say I have to go to my phone to see the comments because my computer is not bringing up your comments. So that's just another way for me to do that. So the thing about being a woman, because of the way that a woman in Islam, reverting to Islam, a lot of people see like, okay, the way that this country teaches us is that women are restricted in Islam, you know. And when you say restricted, you restrict your child from things too, from doing certain things. You could restrict people from being on drugs or having a drug life or, you know, drinking and all that stuff. You could say, you're not doing that in my house if you're holding. And they don't see, like, and this is the slant that I'm going to talk. I'm going to bring this up to y'all.
Yes, sir.
You'll see a Islamic woman with a hijab on.
Come on.
And what a hijab is what you're wearing when you cover yourself. They would think that that's restrictive and you're oppressing them. And then they'll go right to their Catholic church and say, sister, the nun is dressed the same way.
That's right.
And say, sister, this and sister. You see her as being this holy person or whatnot, and you treat her as such and with such respect. You don't see her as being restricted.
Excellent.
But that's a slanted way of that people would think about Islam. So they think of a woman, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to? And with nuns, they are not allowed to get married, you know, things like that. So they're more restricted and things like that. But you will sit up there in charge of a Muslim woman and say, well, why would you want to join? And then you have to cover yourself and do these type of things and it's like that. But that's American brainwashing.
So,
go ahead.
So if I may, I would like to just go into why we cover.
Okay.
So as a woman, first of all, understanding that being a woman, period, in America or any part of the world, we are subjected to just being maybe attacked or anything. Right now, you have so much going on with children being kidnapped, young girls.
Human trafficking.
All right? Human trafficking. Okay? Now, the covering is a protection. The covering honors you. Do you know, let me share something with you before I start even covering. As a woman, I saw the difference. When I didn't cover, when I was it was a difference in the respect, in the way I was treated. I'm not saying I was disrespected or what have you, but it was not, the honor wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah. Good.
And you was just like any other person. But when I started covering, and when I cover, and it doesn't matter where I'm at, or I could just be walking, or I may be just going into the store. Men will stop and open the door. They'll do, just the honor. And this is what Islam does for the woman, for the women. It stands us up high. It puts us on a high standard. And so we're honored. We're not oppressed.
Come on.
Right.
We are honored. When you see me, you respect me. Respect is everything. If you're not respecting me, that's because I'm acting out or I'm not honoring or respecting my own self.
And having respect for yourself also is everything.
But the covering in itself, it gives the woman so much honor. And I tell sisters all the time when I talk to them, unconsciously, we tend to think that a man, and it is true to a degree. If I'm not covered, and if I'm sexy, and if I wear this, or if I do my hair like this or that, that's how I will get what I want from a man. What you do, yes, you get his attention. Yes, you're gonna attract whatever it is you're trying to attract.
Yes, ma'am.
Why don't you level up a brother? Cover yourself up and make him respect you in the honor in which you should be respected. You don't have to be naked. Right. And you will get that. What women complain all the time. Muslims, a lot of Muslimas complain, and they cover. But you know what? At the same time, they're still trying to appease, being fictitious with certain things from the world. Maybe it's nails and lashes and all this, because they say, well, if we do this, this is what the brothers want. You know what? Teach those brothers how to treat you.
Right.
Be your natural self. Cover yourself up, represent yourself, and you will teach him. And whether he wants that, you will teach him how to come in the direction that he needs to come if he wants a real Muslima and a real wife.
Right. A lot of times when we hear people say that in American culture or Western culture, I say that, period, they come or they want to, think that you're being oppressed or you have to cover and this is something. But those are the same people that turn around and complain about being treated as a sexual object, because I did a tour in Germany, and it was they call it liberal. And it wasn't new. Well, we would go to a beach, which is a lake with sand over there, because they wasn't by any ocean. But they would be exposing themselves. They would get dressed in the open, and it was just, they say, oh, that's just liberal. But then you do things like this, and then you complain about being an object in somebody else's mind. All they want you for is your body. Then you complain, but then you have people covering up, and you want to sit there and say, look at that, that's crazy. Yeah. That's a backwards way of thinking.
Yes,
if you don't walk around like this and do this, then maybe the people wouldn't treat you like this.
Right.
And there's some more respect, like you say, you get respect for people because you're covering yourself. Like I say, they're respecting none. They don't have no problem giving her the utmost respect and all this stuff like that. But for the Muslim woman doing it, this oppressing.
And two things. I don't mean to break your flow, but we got to bring this out. Number one, what you said, sister, and what you commented on is in the 33rd chapter of the Muslim holy book, the Quran, where Allah commands the Prophet's wives and the believing women that when they go out in public, cover yourself properly so you won't be molested.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, in this world, we think of molestation as the penetration or the physical rape or the act. No, the molestation happens with undressing the woman and looking at her body parts and all of that. So this is the dignity that our sister's talking about. But secondly, we must note this. Modesty is what we're talking about. In Islam, it's modesty. And you brothers, I'm going to say to our brothers, you have the same responsibility and obligation to be modest in the public. Some of the things we wear in the public, exposing our genitalia with these Speedos and all these things, that's not modest. There's a criteria for modesty. So I want us to understand that that requirement is not just for women, and it's clearly articulated in the 24th surah in the Quran. Men and women, lower your gaze, etc. But the last point I want to make on that is modesty does not have one look.
Okay.
Don't tell me I'm only legitimate if I look like I'm from the Middle East. Every culture, every society has their form of modesty, including America. I see some of these women that aren't even claiming religion or claiming I just see them being very modest. They're not showing no cleavage. It's long, it's loose, it's not see-through. So my point is, don't tell me I have to look like so-and-so to fulfill my obligation of modesty.
All
it has different
looks.
I
appreciate that interjection. So we spoke about the family, both ways, how you are in society. We spoke about that, being accepted in society, being accepted among your family, and how America paints a picture. And it is our duty and obligation to show them what a Muslim is.
Inshallah, yes,
so,
sir. A sober view, a sober presentation of what a Muslim
okay, Claire, tell me why you say a sober.
Because our sister already touched the extreme. You got extremes in all faiths, and religion sometimes can make you drunk. You drunk in your own understanding or whatever. You're an extremist, or you know you're. So the point is, this religion comes to be a balanced religion, a middle of the course. We're not too far right, we're not too far left. Excuse me for using political language. We're not too far, we're not too far. We're right in the middle. And my Imam used the language, and I love this language because this is what he represented. He represented a sober application and a sober understanding of what this faith is.
Okay. Now I have one more question. I don't think I had any questions from anyone on here, but I had a question. When you start seeing, because I know a while back I had my brother on and we were talking, and they had questions for him about the different sects or the different and he was saying, I'm just Orthodox. You know, you have the Shiites, you have, you know, things like that. So I remember someone asking the difference, how we see the difference here in America. Do we see, like, is it a lot of Shiites here and things like that, or the different, and I know my brother said, well, I'm neither, nor I'm Orthodox Muslim, you know, and they had a question about that, like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? And they didn't understand the difference between the different,
yes, sir.
And I mean, it's a lot, those are the major, you know.
Yeah, what I would say to that, no, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, go ahead.
No, what I would say to that, I would use the language traditional. Yeah. And there's a reason why I'm using that language. It was no accident, it was deliberate who Almighty God chose to reveal the Quran to. And even in that revelation, Almighty God edifies and honors Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace. It goes so far as to say that, number one, you have in him, indeed you have in him, an excellent model, not just for Muslims, for any who believe in the last day, any who believe in accountability and have reverence and remember God much. So he's a model for humanity. God chose him on purpose. What is the other piece that I want to add to that, though? Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace, he had, Allah says in the Quran, obedience to me, meaning obedience to God. When you obey the Prophet, you're obeying me. So where am I going with this? Other religions, well, I'll say, I'm hesitating because I don't want to offend anyone, but there are religions that become established after the death of the one who they seem to be representing, or after the death of the one who brought that form of religion. So that person is not there to refute, to confirm, to deny. So you make it up as you go along in some cases. And I'm giving the abbreviated version, but if you study the history of the religion I'm thinking of, you will see that. In Islam, again, commonly called Islam, Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace, took 23 years and lived among us as the last prophet, and he demonstrated for us the proper understanding of the Quran. And he verified the authenticity of the Quran in his lifetime. The way it was arranged, because the way it is arranged is not the order it was revealed. I don't know how much I want to say, so let me just cut to it. What I'm trying to get us to see here is that when we have to respect God's choice, and we have to respect what God allowed him to establish as Islam. We got all these versions today, but what did Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace, establish as Islam? Because it's left on the annals of history for us to review. Medina Munawwara, Medina, the city of enlightenment, that first Islamic state. How did he conduct his affairs? So that's why I'm using traditional Islam. Personally, I'm even reluctant to say Sunnah, because Sunnah today doesn't mean what it meant when it was first established. It's become politicized. So this is what I say. I am a Muslim that follows the Quran and the observed practices, the life example, the authentic traditions of Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace. Because the Honorable Lady Aisha, may God be pleased with her, said that Muhammad is the Quran walking. So now, take that and then study our history. How did we get Shiite? When did the Moorish Science Temple come to an effect? When did the Nation of Islam? What is Sufism, etc., etc.? Is that what Muhammad the Prophet taught, upon him be peace? And here's another thing.
I'm trying to think if you saw my book, man, because you said it was not well, anyway, go ahead.
But here's another thing. We name Islam and make a sect out of Islam, when actually we should all possess the characteristics that we're trying to make a sect out of. I'll give you an example. You've heard of the Hanafi sect, perhaps.
Right.
Hanafi just means to be true and upright. All Muslims should be true and upright. We don't need to name a sect out of it. Sunni Muslims, that means to follow the way, or follow the path, or follow the traditions of Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace. Well, I would say all Muslims should be following. We don't need to name a sect after it. So that's where I'm going with this. This language, and then unfortunately, brother, some of us have introduced things of Al-Islam or Islam. I'll just say Islam. Some of us, because Al-Islam is very formal and specific. I'll just say some of us have introduced a type of Islam that doesn't have its foundation in the Quran, nor in the life of Muhammad the Prophet, upon him be peace. So now I have a problem. What have we done? We've made it convenient for us. We've made it satisfy our lust. We've altered it to make it easier for us. But is that what the Quran says? Is that what Muhammad the Prophet brought upon him be peace? And I can go on and on, but I'm going to stop. But you get my point. Yeah. So all of these sects, these are man-made. And the Quran itself says, do not divide yourself up into sects. And the Quran says there's a consequence, a negative consequence. There's a punishment for doing so. So I don't have to put a label, brother.
I'm saying, so I know, I remember that was a question.
That's a great question.
That someone posed, and
I saw one time with Ice Cube on TV I was watching, and they asked him, they said, what kind of Muslim are you? And he looked for a little bit in a pause. He said, I'm an American Muslim. That's what I am. You see,
because it's a lot of celebrities that people don't, and they wonder when they look at them and they look at these celebrities that this person converting. And I know Ice Cube said, I found peace. They asked him why. Why did you convert to Islam? And he said, because that's where I found peace.
But here's the other piece. When you start mentioning folks like a David Chappelle and an Ice Cube, for an example, let's leave the judging to Allah.
Right.
Because there are some things that these public personalities that are Muslims are involved in that if you understand your religion properly, you would not be associated with. I'm just going to make it plain.
Yeah,
alcohol,
that's something that Allah
will and all that.
But people that's been converting, and Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world and continues to be. And they say by 2050 or so that Christianity in America has dipped down below 50%. And people are jumping ship, and people are either becoming atheists or they don't know what they want to be, but they're jumping ship, and that's a fear in America. So I also look at this, my hypothesis, my theory is that Islam will be under more attack, and we have to be guided, and we have to guide it, and we have to protect it, because they're going to promote more propaganda, because they're going to be in panic mode. And I'm not talking about the Christians saying this. I'm saying the government people that's anti-Islam. So I think that's something I want to say before I get off of the show. Is it something that you want to, how would someone, if they want to learn any more about Islam, go about doing that? How would you say? Someone has questions and they say, well, you know what, I'm hearing a lot and I want to learn a lot more. In San Antonio, what would your response be?
Well, naturally, I'm going to invite them to Masjid Bilal Ibn Rabah here in San Antonio, Texas, whether you're on the east side or anywhere. But there are several masajid in this city. This city of San Antonio is not a Houston, it's not a Dallas, but we have grown quite a bit. And we have a mosque or masajid on the north side, northeast side, north side, northwest side. So we're growing in that sense. And you can learn a lot on the internet, but I think that you still need someone that perhaps is practicing, or someone that you can talk to and get clarity from and ask questions. I think all of that is very important. So we're located at 530 South W.W. White Road, right near Houston, I-10. There's a Popeyes there. If you're familiar on the east side, there's something called the Barber College. We're right next door to the Barber College. And we have a website. Make note of our website, because that way you can email us, you can call us. The website is M as in Mary, IBRSA.org. MIBRSA.org, and there'll be more information, and you can get in contact with us. Through that medium. And I'm gonna yield to our sister here, because I know we're running out of time. You said we have plenty of time, but we want to respect people's times, and we don't want to go too long. But I do want to say this before I yield. I think it's important for us to know that regardless to what you're seeing in the world, Islam has given women more rights and more dignity. And I'm not talking about in the 20th or 21st century. We're going back to the 7th century. when all of this came about. They got the right to vote. When did our women get the right to vote? They got the right to inheritance. Do you know some religions suggested that women don't even have a soul? My point is, Islam has always considered women and considered them in leadership, etc. So one of the things, I'm going to speak now specifically to the ethnicity or the race. You said African American, black women, and Muslim. We are different than the other communities. Unfortunately, some of the baggage from our brothers and sisters from overseas, they have this thing of treating their women like second-class citizens. So the American people are not crazy on that. We've done that internationally. In our masajid, where we have African American women, they have a voice. We don't put them behind a screen or a curtain or in a basement or in a closet. They sit in the main worship room. They're on our boards. They're involved with decision making, and their voice is heard and respected. Our women ain't gonna take no shorts. You already know that. You're not gonna treat our women any kind of way, or you gonna hear about it.
Yeah. No.
But the thing about it is, Islam amplifies that right.
Right.
Where many of our other sisters are denied that right because of the culture, like your caller or your person said. It's a culture thing. So I'm not going to say any more. There's much to be said. If you ever want to follow up and do another part, we would love to come back and share with your audience.
Okay.
But I just want to thank you. I consider it an honor and to be on your show. And I also want you to know that I'm learning now. This invitation caused me to kind of look at your show and see what you're doing, how you're using your platform. And I appreciate the variety of the topics that you address. And I appreciate your social consciousness and your stand for justice. So thank you, brother.
All right. I appreciate you coming on and enlightening us and enlightening my audience. Also, did you want to leave with something, sister?
I do want to leave with this for especially African American Muslim sisters. We are struggling. We are struggling in our mindset of this religion, this beautiful religion of Al-Islam. We have got to start coming together on the terms of Quran, Sunnah, and learning how to read, write, and understand the Quran in its original language. We have got to take time to shift and turn away from what we say dunya, which means society, and start turning our direction more towards this Quran, because we are not making decisions that are Islamic-based decisions for our life. Sisters, we lead. We are mothers. We teach. Let's start having more conversation when it comes to our life on a Quranic base, and be more of a support to each other, and not have our conversations about society and the things of that nature from the world. We are in the world, but we are not of the world, because we have our own way of life. Thank you. Thank you for having us on the show.
Inshallah. I appreciate y'all showing up. I appreciate everyone that connected into the show this week, and hopefully I have another good show for y'all. Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint, and hopefully I'll see y'all next week. And I appreciate my guest again. I appreciate y'all showing up and enlightening us.
And may I greet you on air, my brother?
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.